Hello, everyone. Today's theme, Reboot, Rewire, it cannot be more interesting and apt theme in these times. Actually, it's an evergreen theme if you really think about it. Let's take an example. Let's go back a few years. You all know in 90s in India, it was very difficult to get a computer or any modern technology. Some would protest against computers saying it would take away jobs. Some mock the concept behind it, calling it as a complete scam. Some found it too complicated to learn and adopt. Some simply laughed at it off and just a fad and said it won't last long. But then, we all have seen and experiences that India failed economically. People started understanding and realizing the defining role of modern technology and where to move on and adopt the new technology. And here we are. I have a firm belief when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves, and that we all have done in our times. Again, a very interesting example from our childhood. When I was a high school kid, we used to have computers with 96 MB RAM, and in those days, playing a game like GTA used to be a real struggle. But today, even smartphones as cheap as $100 can run over it. That's the beauty of technology. We all know technology is growing exponentially. The internet is really, really cheap and expanding to every single human on this planet. Actually, I don't think that technology will take away jobs or replace the deep consciousness of human being. It's quite weird thinking about, a Matrix or a Blade Runner or a Terminator scenario. I hope you all have seen those movies, right? Since we won't face Arnold Schwarzenegger fighting with a vacuum cleaner, I prefer to talk about the concept of humanization of technology. Let me take you a bit deep into this concept. The internet is the biggest opportunity of this generation, without doubt. It is a massive revolution in the way the world operates today. Think about it. 2 decades ago, there was no Google, no Amazon. Flashing forward to this day, most of the world's finances operate through these tech giants. Some people call the ad-driven business model the internet's original sin. Well, half true, half false. Remember the time you got a new SIM card and start getting dozens and dozens of these non-stop scam calls? Frustrated? We all were. We had no choice but, to either switch off our phones, put it on the airplane mode. Let's look at your phones now. Take a look at the applications on your phone today. Can you tell me which app or browser is tapping into your location, browsing your search history, reading your chats with your friends, keeping a check on how many steps you walked yesterday, or even worse, just imagine somebody is listening to your private conversations. Scary. Guys, we are the product being used by the internet. And this is the definition of Web 2 in my opinion. Maybe we have learned to ignore unknown numbers. Maybe we have switched off our Google Maps for the location services, or worst case, we switch off our Alexa when we invite a girl at home, right? We are careful what we are sharing on social media. We are extra careful with setting up our browsers. But do you think it should be like this? Our data should be ours and only ours. But with the rise of Web3, the balance of favor will swing back in favor of us. We are no longer a product of the internet. It should be our content, and it will be our content. Where, with whom, and how you choose to share your content is completely your choice. This would undoubtedly be the most exciting time in the history to be a digital creator. It could be a writer, it could be an artist, it could be a designer, or any kind of content creator. In Web 2, as a user, you don't have any control over your data or how it is stored. A pretty real example. In many countries, users were at risk or are being targets of negative consequences of free speech, the servers being centralized. It is easy for these government bodies to control, shut down servers, or even freeze bank accounts if they believe a person is voicing a contradictory opinion, going against their propaganda. And we all have seen that at times with financial institutions like banks being digital or under centralized control. Governments often intervene, and they create situations like this, as in the unfortunate situation that people are facing right now amidst Russia-Ukraine war. Access to bank accounts and funds are shut, and this has happened during political turmoils. This has happened during extreme inflations. Coming back to Web3, things would be a lot different with the rise of Web3. And by the way, this term which I'm using a lot is to describe the next phase of the internet. Web3 aims to solve the bottlenecks that come with Web2 by remaking the architecture of the internet with decentralization at the core. and all its entirety. Again, decentralization. You will hear that word a lot going forward. You must have noticed how Web3 and cryptocurrency are often part of the same conversation. This is because cryptocurrency's blockchain technology allows users to not be relying on any single government or any corporation, so that the control entirely lies within the user. Again, if you go back, the backdrop of currency debasement is fortifying the feeling that crypto is becoming a broadly investable asset class at the exact moment the world needs it. Take the example again of Russia right now, or the post-COVID scenarios. I don't know many of you know this or not. During COVID times, India received more than $1 billion of donation from the world as a COVID relief fund, and this was all happened anonymously through donations of crypto. That's Web3. Web3 is many things to many people, but one of its core pillar is the concept of ownership. By spreading the capital more widely, the space of Web3 has the potential to drag millions of people out of their traditional wage labor and towards the ownership. Another interesting term, DAO. Never heard? It means decentralized autonomous organization. DAOs are a critical part of this movement, a new way of organizing people. DAOs seek the same ends of Web3. The creation of value, rely on decentralized framework in which workers and stakeholders have the true ownership of the entity. DAOs are a lot more than just a Discord channel and a native token. They are member-owned communities without central leadership, an open way to interact with internet strangers, a safe place to commit funds to for a cause, or even any member of the DAO can come up with a suggestion, and people appreciate and assess it. So that's true, truly the new structure which is coming up. As more and more assets move on chain, smart contracts are essentially the digital and immutable versions of our traditional smart contracts between two or multiple parties. So the more we move on chain, the more we move on smart contracts, the more programmatic incentives come in. It will replace the total legal system which used to guarantee the ownership. Similarly, DAOs will replace legal entities. Rather than forming companies, individuals will instead create DAOs to manage the on-chain assets. This is, by the way, not so far. We are already experiencing it, and it's actually happening at a rapid pace. As I've mentioned, DAOs are a paradigm shift over traditional companies in that they can be global from the get-go, permissionless to join or contribute, and minimize the frictions such as identity, employment contracts, job interviews, and even real-time compensation. Disrupting the ancient concept of company and hierarchy also consists in rebooting and rewiring the roles in the architecture of the organizations. Now think how we used to think about C-level or the management team. We have always been challenged to ask ourselves if we are ready to be true leaders. The role of a leader is not to come up with great ideas, guys. The role of a leader is today to create an environment in which great ideas can happen. And while we forge ourselves in accepting tech disrupting classical organizational structures and finance, we absolutely need to accept the power of empowerment and draw a new pattern of upcoming CEOs. What is CEO? Chief Executive Officer? No. For me, Chief Empowerment Officer. And that is the reality of today. As many of us know, and as mentioned before also, there is a growing fear among citizens of all classes that advances in automation, AI, robotics will replace many of today's jobs. And that fear isn't entirely misplaced. However, the explosion of Web3 and associated DAOs may spawn hundreds of new industries, thousands of new organizations, and millions of new jobs that didn't exist before. Let's take a fancy title, Chief Blockchain Officer. Have you ever heard about it? Well, that's happening now. A very, very dear friend of mine told me once that you don't learn crypto, you live crypto. And that's true in its entirety. Crypto offers strong protection for property rights and a global permissionless financial system that anyone can leverage to convert assets into capital in a far more efficient way than today's archaic alternatives. Actually, being on blockchain brigade today is just like being an elite university over 100 years ago. It's just more fast and more quick. It's a place for the smartest of the intellectuals to meet and work together. Let me give you a reference. I was listening to the interview of Alexius Ohanian. He's the founder of Reddit. He gave a very good example of Web 2 versus Web 3. He mentioned how our parents and siblings used to spend hours and hours of their time playing Candy Crush and got no value out of their time spent. In fact, they used to pay for these games, right? That's what is changing in Web 3. If you are a player in a game today, You can play to earn. If you're a developer of a game, or if you're even a part of that development community, you can earn from it while others are playing. Imagine that every bit of your second is returning you some value. Now let's see how Web3 is changing the world of finance. That's where I come from. The rise of blockchain, this whole infrastructure, blockchain infrastructure has revolutionized the whole centuries old business of finance, reshaping it and opening up new revenue opportunities. With traditional systems, we used to have manual contracts where the importing bank manually reviews the agreements provided by the borrower buyer and sends financials to the corresponding bank. Look at the exporter side. Exporters use invoices to achieve short-term financing from multiple banks, adding additional risk in the delivery of goods. The shipment of the goods can be delayed due to multiple checks and numerous communication points. Since each party across country operates on a different platform, there was a lot of miscommunication and frauds were very common. In fact, are very common. Bill of lading, the underlying document in any shipping, were financed multiple times because there was no communication among banks for their authenticity. Now, with the blockchain in picture, these financial documents linked and accessible through blockchain are reviewed and approved in real time, reducing the time it takes to initiate the shipment. Invoices accessed on blockchain provide a real-time and transparent view into subsequent short-term financing. Bills of lading are tracked through blockchain, eliminating the potential of double spending. The title, which is the most important thing in the shipping industry, which basically means the ownership of goods. Blockchain provides transparency into the location and the ownership. Contract, again, smart contract brings eliminate the need for corresponding banks, transactional fees. So no more intermediaries in the chain, no more time taken by them. Guys, the act of recording a document using a laptop in a corporate storage is nothing, it's still the same thing like printed a document and keeping in a shelf, or a manuscript in library in the Middle Ages. Today, one of the greatest opportunities in decentralized finance, another word to remember, DeFi, is represented by possibility to bridge the gap of over $1.6 trillion of unmet requests in trade finance, while allowing SMEs to get unprecedented direct access to trade financing opportunities in the crypto ecosystem. This term DeFi is changing the way finance happens. DeFi is building exciting applications with real world use cases that have the main purpose of democratizing finance. Institutions are gradually becoming more educated, and DeFi protocols, hopefully using them to create a more open and transparent financial system. I can't remember a very famous quote, embrace the future. Change has never been this fast, and it will never be this slow again. You are not what is happening now. You are how you choose to handle it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. And I'm here.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking out time from your busy
gradually becoming more educated, and DeFi protocols, hopefully using them to create a more open and transparent financial system. I can't remember a very famous quote, embrace the future. Change has never been this fast, and it will never be this slow again. You are not what is happening now. You are how you choose to handle it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time.